Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Tuesday. It is 9 a.m. on the East Coast. Ryan's got some other weird time that isn't
It's 10 a.m. here right now.
10 a.m. That's all?
Yeah. Lunchtime for you, right?
It is noon Eastern. I said 9 a.m. It's 9 a.m. Pacific. It is noon Eastern here, and I'm
In
ready for lunch.
Ohio. Ohio. Is that where you're at? Oh yeah.
Right, is that what I'm supposed to do? Like hold the jersey up?
I don't know.
Yeah, I am in Ohio today. In fact, I doubled up on the Ohio. I've got also a Cleveland shirt underneath
Ooh.
it. So
It looks cold there. Is it cold there?
It is cold. We had 6 inches of snow on Sunday night. Got it all shoveled and cleared, and didn't really go anywhere. And yeah, that's what's going on. So how are you? How's the weather there in horrible Arizona?
So a cold front came through, so it rained this morning, and it's only going to reach 64. It's been getting into like lower 70s, so today's going to be a little chilly. I'm still wearing a short sleeve shirt though, but I had to put on like pants instead of shorts.
Yeah, you probably need a jacket, man. That sounds awful.
Yeah, if you're going outside, I mean, the rain here is dangerous, so it gets wet and then you're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, hey,
but it was a good long weekend. It's nice. Got to spend time with family, so that's all good.
I think this is the first time that Amazon had MLK Day as a official holiday, if I'm correct.
I think you're right about that. I was wondering that myself. I didn't actually look it up, but that seems right. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. That's the first time that we in Amazon have had Martin Luther King Day off, which is kind of nice. Now, for those of you that are maybe not based in the United States, I would assume you may still know who Martin Luther King is, but if you don't, he was a civil rights leader in the 60s who was unfortunately assassinated, but had a dramatic impact on the civil rights movement, as well as just the rights of people in general here in the United States. And so he is celebrated on I think it's the second Monday of every January. And I think that was his birthday-ish, if it's the second Monday.
Yeah.
But that was celebrated yesterday here in the United States, and we've made that a national holiday here at Amazon. But it has been a holiday for the United States for quite a while. A very minor holiday in that, but it's still like a postal and banking holiday, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But speaking of times and dates, one of the things that Ryan and I have been talking about is potentially moving office hours, moving it to a different day, maybe a different time. And everyone is going to have their opinions on this. And so I think the thing that we're trying to potentially move is to get off of this 9 a.m. Pacific Tuesday morning. And as a result of that, we have all of these meetings that pop up all the time, but it seems like 9 a.m. on Tuesday Pacific time is a consistently important meeting. It isn't always the same. It just seems like that's a consistent scheduling point. So we're talking about potentially moving it. We don't know where we might move it to. Alan Furstenberg says, I finally have Tuesdays at noon Eastern available every other week.
Yep.
Now you want to move it. Yeah.
We knew that. Yeah.
We're toying with the
idea.
idea.
Knew this is going to happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the next best fit for us might actually be Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, same time as we're doing right now, just a different day. I don't know. Alan does not like Wednesdays. All right, we'll play with it. We're gonna talk about some ideas, but we'll those are his office hours on Wednesdays. All right, maybe Thursday. We'll figure something out.
Let's just merge them together. Just have one big office hour.
We could do them all together at once.
Yeah,
that would actually be pretty awesome. I would love to tune in for his office hours, but I feel like we always have a conflict. Yeah. Okay. So just something to talk about. Nothing major. Okay. So let's get in. So we've got a couple of questions here. Fabio Victorino on YouTube said, "Hey, what does an Alexa developer do?" Or what specifically his words were, "What Alexa developer does." But I will never challenge anyone for having
serious
English as maybe not their first language. And so Alexa developers, Fabio, if you're still watching, Alexa developers are people that can build things to run on Echo devices. So this is the Echo Show and a lot of the devices that I have here behind me. And we and that's most of the people that are here viewing as well, we have the capabilities and the knowledge and the technical skills to basically build applications that you control with your voice. So that's what we're here to talk about today. That's what we're here to answer questions about. And I see we've got Habuma and A. Witters and Brian Tarbox and R. Kauf. I think that's Ryan Kaufman, if I recall properly. But Brian Tarbox has a question. This is going to be a challenging one for me, but we'll do our best to try to talk about this. It seems like the developer engagement rewards have gone away in favor of smaller ISP take. I think he's talking about how we announced that we're going to be changing the percentages. I've had 24 months in a row of engagement payoffs and now 2 months of nothing. This forces devs like me to go to a freemium model that seems 100% contrary to put the customer first, as it will cause me to charge my users for things that would otherwise be free. So, Brian, I will tell you that right now, that probably does feel that way. I know as part of our announcement, we announced that there's more things coming, and we didn't really get into the specifics about what those things are. But my hope is that all of you as developers will be pleased by the outcome of these other things. But I'm not in a position today to discuss what those other things are. But if you read the blog post carefully, it does say that there are some other benefits to be announced later. So hopefully that will help. I don't know anything about the developer rewards today specifically being scaled back or rolled back. As much as I would love to have full access and visibility into everything that we do here, it's actually very, very hard to get those kinds of answers and specifics ahead of time. And so even if that were the case, I don't know that I would necessarily be knowledgeable about it, but it is good for me to see that you are noticing a pattern, and I don't like the pattern that you're seeing. So let me talk with some people and see what I can come up with. This will definitely get logged as some great feedback for our team. Okay.
Yeah.
Alan also
was
awarded the Nobel Prize in 1964. Thing I didn't know. I thought he had won a Nobel Prize, I think, but I don't think that I had officially committed that to memory. Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the other thing I was going to add to Brian's comment is definitely keep comments like that coming. The last thing we want is anything to happen, some new policy. We don't hear it from you guys. Disgruntlement, is that a word?
It is not a word, but we'll let it go.
Developers get disgruntled and then fall away. And that's the last thing that we want. I do know that we do experiment and we do play with different things, and some don't always land how we want them to. And so please hit us up on Slack, give us these stories. These do make it into our reporting system. So the stories that you give us do impact internal things that are happening. So I wanted to add on to that. So good or bad, you can throw some good stuff in there too. That wouldn't hurt, but definitely share that with us, please.
Yes, I can't agree more. Sometimes it hurts me because I feel like you guys are upset or something's broken or you're not happy. And I see a lot of this in Slack as well. But if you don't tell us, if you're not vocal about the challenges or the problems or the needs or desires or whatever it is that you have about what's going on with Alexa, then we can't take action. We can't let those teams know. And that is a big part of our job, is to make sure that you are being heard inside Amazon. So don't feel like you're going to hurt my feelings if you want to talk about this stuff. I'll talk about it. I may not have an answer you love, but I'll happily talk about all this stuff with you guys. Okay, Don. I think Don and I have talked on Slack a little bit. His question is about Amazon Pay for Alexa versus account linking. Just to give a little background on this, there's a couple of different ways that you can accept payments inside an Alexa skill. The first one is using in-skill purchasing. We've talked about that at length, whether you do consumables or one-time purchases or subscriptions or whatever. But that's for digital goods and services. When you venture into the physical goods and services, like real-world things, like I want to buy a shovel, or I want to hire a lawn mowing service or whatever it is, in any of those cases, you have to have a payment service set up. And there's a number of ways you can do that. One, you can do it like Domino's Pizza does, where they already have a website and an app, and you already have an account with them, and they already know your delivery address, they already know your credit card information. And so they set up an Alexa skill. They do account linking to the account that they already have for you. And then when you say, order me a pizza through their device, it already knows everything else it needs to do. It uses that account linking to recognize what your address is, what your credit card is, whatever, and makes that transaction for you and delivers it to you. Makes it really simple because you've kind of preset everything that you need. The other way, though, if you want to sell products directly through your skill, is to use something called Amazon Pay. And Amazon Pay is really nothing more than a glorified credit card processor, but it allows you to use Amazon Pay as the mechanism by which you accept payments. And when you set up Amazon Pay, it's a rather complicated process to add this to your skill. But you can ask people if they want to buy something. If they say yes, you can send a transaction to Amazon Pay. It will allow you to basically use the user's default credit card on their Amazon account to make that purchase, and then it returns a transaction ID to you. Say, hey, like this was completed or successful or whatever, and then you can add that to whatever system you have for shipping products out or delivering or doing whatever it is you're going to do. And so the question Don has is, why is the certification team insisting that I use account linking? I have built it to use Amazon Pay. Please advise. Thanks. So Don, if we haven't talked about this before, because I don't recognize the username Don, I feel like we've been talking maybe under a different name, or maybe you're a different person. But my experience is that you should be able to do either one, and it should not require account linking. So if you haven't already, this is where we dive into the Contact Us form. And I recommend that you file a Contact Us request with this team, and I can put this on the screen here maybe. This link, go to alexa.design/contact us, fill out a Contact Us form, ask them why they're asking you to do this when you know, in fact, that you could just use Amazon Pay on its own. And as a part of that, you will also receive a ticket ID number. And that ticket ID number allows me to then escalate things inside our company. So I can go to our certification team and say, hey, here's the ticket this person opened. Why are we telling them that they have to use account linking when that is not the case? And that gives me more power. If I go to them without this kind of information, I can still say, hey, why are we asking people to do this? But it might just be a one-off case or whatever. This makes it easy to track and kind of see everything that's going on. So if you haven't already done that, Don, and I don't know if you have, I'll take a look. So we'll see what we can do there. But hopefully that should always be the first step for everybody. If you're running into an issue with policy or you disagree with a certification choice or whatever, open up a Contact Us ticket, see if they solve it for you. And if they don't, then let's talk at office hours. Let's escalate. Let's talk about how we can do some things. Okay, that was a lot. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
That was very, very thorough. No, I think that's good. He did add, so Don did do a follow-up comment. So my skill is more of kiosk, like walk up, make your selection, opt to purchase where the skill uses Amazon Pay, account link. No account exists to link to.
Got it. So yeah, you don't even have a third-party service like I was describing Domino's. You only have, although the kiosk-like description concerns me, because if this is a public device that anyone could walk up to like a kiosk traditionally is, I don't know how you would do the purchasing, because setting up an Echo device does take a little bit of effort, but I might be rat-holing on a thing that's not important. You might have just meant it's a way for people to shop on their device, and exclusively that's the only place they can make that purchase. So again, we can keep talking about this, but I think a Contact Us request is probably your good first step. Gavin Watson wants to know if I have any feedback on the Alexa agencies and tools page that's available on our developer portal. I haven't heard anything new, but I did follow up last week with the person that owns this page, so I'm hoping to hear something soon. I was gone last week at the Code Bash conference, and I haven't heard back from him, although I did get an out of office. So I think he should be back soon. Hopefully we'll get some more answers. What I'd love for them to do is have a nomination form where companies can come in and nominate themselves or others and say, hey, this company really should be there. I think that would be a good place. Ryan, are you familiar with this page?
I am familiar with this page. I don't know the backend mechanism that populates that or criteria or anything like that.
We have an agencies team, right? They're the team that kind of manages our relationships and works with a lot of the big agencies that are building voice stuff today. And I'm not going to say the individual's name on out loud because I don't want people to go stalk this person, but they technically own the page, and if they need changes made, then they are the ones that make that change. So I just need to get with them and see about how because I think there's a bunch of other agencies that would like to be on that page that are doing Alexa stuff that may not be on their radar.
Yeah.
Okay. There is
I skipped over Gavin's other question to me. You just skipped right over it. Where he's asking,
Ryan, how's Starlink holding up? My apologies.
Yeah, this is obviously the most important comment of the day. No, it's working really, really well. I've had one morning where we had an outage for maybe 10 minutes. But other than that, it's been great. I'm using it right now only. And actually, I started streaming last week. On Twitch, and Starlink's been doing great. I noticed like it does drop a little bit of the connection, but the live stream is able to just pick it right up. Yeah, it's working great.
Awesome. And I mean, you're using that same internet connection right now, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah. I was using a VPN to bond to my internet service providers together, just to make sure nothing was dropped. And I'm actually getting much better results just going straight Starlink. So it's been fantastic.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear Starlink is doing well. And my apologies for missing that question.
Gavin wanted to know.
Spiridonica Andre on LinkedIn says, what programming language do devs use in order to create an Alexa app?
Ooh.
I've been talking a lot. I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, so any is really the answer, but it gets a little bit more detailed than that. So when you create a skill, you have this. You basically are creating this backend code in order to execute all the different commands. So from the front end to the back end. And the back end is where you actually go and do stuff, write stuff to a database, pull stuff from a database, interact with other services or whatnot. The backend code, there's lots of different options. The most straightforward option is we have what's called Alexa hosted AWS Lambda. So we're taking AWS's Lambda, we've wrapped it and made it free inside the Alexa console. And when you choose that option, you have two options, Node.js and Python, that you can use right out of the gate. And you'll get access to the Node.js and Python SDKs, and everything is just super easy and happy. You can also choose AWS in your own account, in which case then you can use AWS Lambda in your own account, I should say, in which case then you can use any of the programming languages that Lambda works with, which includes Node.js, Python, but also, there we go, Java, Go, PowerShell, Node.js, C#, Ruby. Now, the key there is that we don't have SDKs for all those different languages in Lambda. And so the SDK for Alexa, what it does is it helps you take the incoming request from the front end of your skill, which is really just a JSON payload, and helps you construct a response, which is another JSON payload. Their SDK is not required, but it is super convenient. So we only have SDKs for a few of those languages that we support. And then I think I've seen a C# one out there as well.
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up. So an old friend of mine from my Microsoft days, his name is Tim Hewer. He worked on a bunch of cool stuff, including things like Silverlight and Windows Phone, and don't exist anymore, but he worked on them when they were super cool. And so he's an old friend of mine, and he is managing a Alexa.net GitHub repository that includes an SDK. And it's fantastic. So if you are a C# developer, .NET developer, check out Alexa.net on GitHub, and he's keeping it up to date. He reaches out to me every once in a while when he has questions about implementations, but overall, he's doing a fantastic job. But it is a third-party SDK. It's not one that we officially support or anything. Just to put that disclaimer on it. But Tim's amazing, and I would expect it to be perfect.
Yeah, and then just to follow up, the last option is you can just specify a REST endpoint where you have a server or whatever backend system you want, and we send a JSON request, and you respond with a JSON response. And so you could write it in COBOL if you wanted to. So that is the full suite of answers. The easiest, I think, is Node.js or Python. You'll find the most samples and help and tutorials around those two languages, but really you can use whatever you want.
Nice. Little side note, this is a little inside baseball for Amazon. Ryan, I filled out an expense report for my CodeMash trip that I was at last week this morning, maybe 2 hours ago. It just got approved, like within 2 hours.
Nice.
That is the fastest I've ever had that happen, ever. Normally, this process, like it works with a whole expense audit team. They go through every expense and make sure your receipts match and all that stuff. And it can take days. 2 hours. I love it.
Nice.
Crackmac on Twitch said, is there an RSS feed for the Alexa blogs? I tried a few obvious URLs like /feed and /Adam, but no luck. You know what? This is a question that I have asked a number of times because I'd love to build a flash briefing skill for our blog. I thought that'd
Right.
be kind of a cool thing. As it turns out, whatever blogging engine we're using does not provide an RSS feed. There is not one. So if you want to subscribe to it, your only option is via email, which they do offer right there on the blog page. But no, there is not a traditional RSS feed that you can just grab and consume like we have known of for decades. I don't know the right word. But no, that does not exist. And it makes me very sad. And it's not an option they can even turn on. I've tried. I don't know how anyone could build a blogging engine that doesn't produce an RSS feed, but
I'm sure they have reasons, Jeff.
Sure. I
I'm
am not privy to the reasons. I'm sure they're very strong and valid. Okay. So Brian Tarbuck says, thanks. No one has ever said I was too subtle. By the way, as I'm starting to code ISP, I see that all the examples are in Node, nothing in Python. That does not surprise me. There is a significant, this is a guide to all of you. Implementing in-skill purchasing is a heavy lift. There's a lot that you need to do. There are a number of new intents you need to add. There's a number of new handlers that you have to create for all sorts of different scenarios. And I think at one time there was a Python example, Ryan, but it may not be up to date.
Yeah, I was just looking in the Alexa samples GitHub repository. I found one that has in-skill purchases in the name of the repo. I don't know the quality of it, but I'll paste it in here.
Yeah, Winners also did. If you jump down a couple of comments.
Oh, never mind.
It's there as well.
Yeah.
Is that the same one?
You're good. It is the same one.
Okay.
So you get it multiple times. You guys are good.
So I'll throw this on the screen for anybody that's not on Twitch. You can see it here. GitHub.com/Alexa samples. That is the whole URL there. But I don't know what state it's in or how usable or workable the code is. But it is a sample that we did create at one point, and I don't believe that the mechanisms for in-skill purchasing have changed dramatically, so it should still work if it ever worked. That's the thing I don't know.
I'm sure it worked at some point.
It must have. If we published it, it must have worked. W. Giorgio says, sorry, I'm having trouble accessing your Cards of Wonder skill right now. I get that every time I try to sell cards now. It doesn't say anything in logs. Why? It says that and then closes. This started probably in the last month. Any ideas? Also sent to contact us in Slack. The only reason that comes to mind would be that in some way the in-skill purchasing APIs had a hiccup or were down, but you're saying that you get this every time. So if you're getting it every time, my next question is, can you access ISPs and other skills and do those work? And then if we've narrowed it down to your skill and that's the reason that you're having an issue, my guess is that you're not handling a specific response type properly. And W. Giorgio, I know you have been through this a lot, so I'm never here to question anybody's developer capabilities or anything like that, but here's my assumption as to what's happening. You are passing a manifest to the skill that says, hey, they want to make a purchase. Here's the product ID they want, and they want to buy it. And a couple of things could be true. One, the product ID that you're passing doesn't exist. That seems unlikely because normally you get that dynamically. I think our samples show you getting it dynamically rather than like hard coding that. The second possibility is that you're passing it in and then you hear the offer or whatever and you say yes or no, and the yes or no response that's coming back to your skill is not being handled appropriately. Maybe it's not hitting a handler properly, or there's a typo in a condition or something like that. I've seen that pretty commonly. Those are the things that stand out to me. But and for anybody else that's watching, if you have a skill with ISPs, if you can just verify that the ISPs are working in general, which I would expect them to be, I don't think that's a service that would go down, or if it did, we'd hear about it. Man, that's the stuff that stands out to me.
He just added a comment that said it isn't ISP. So I'm trying to.
It isn't ISP? Okay.
It isn't ISP. I'm having trouble accessing your cards. I get that every time I try to sell cards now.
Because there's a bunch of different states to selling the cards, right? Is it during the upsell process? Like you passed an upsell. What is the thing? Why am I forgetting the word? We'll call it a command. You're passing the upsell command. That's not the word I want, but we'll use it. Is it a buy command? Is it on the response back? So does it prompt you with the card information and give you the price, and then you say yes or no, and then it breaks? Like there's like 7 phases to this whole process, and I'd love to know if you can consistently identify what it is. Is it just during when you pass the upsell or the buy command that it breaks? I'd love to know more about that. Okay. Continuing on, and W Georgia, if you send me a private message in Slack, I can look more into your ticket after we're done here. Benjamin Anderson, Mr. Anderson. I'm enjoying my time developing on Echo Show 15. I look forward to getting widgets working soon with my skill. Widgets will really help see skills data at a glance. Agreed. I believe widgets are still in developer preview or whatever. So you can
request
access. Apply for access, but you don't. Yeah. There's not like public access today. Ryan, do you know where that link might be?
I found a link. Yes, APL preview form. I'm gonna paste it here for everybody.
Cool.
It is pasting. Yeah, I think widgets are going to be amazing. Like I want to fill up this screen here with just all kinds of widgets. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Agreed. All right. Murillo Loureiro in Brazil on YouTube says, hardware to work with Alexa is so expensive in Brazil.
Oh.
I'm sorry to hear that. And I wish that I could help solve that problem, but I'm betting the postage to get you a device would be just as bad. The good news in all of this is that realistically, and I would be curious to know if people want to share their thoughts on this in the chats, you shouldn't need a device. It's nice to have a device, but you shouldn't need one. I think between the tools that you have in the developer console, there's a simulator there. There's a bunch of other great testing tools that you can use right there in the developer tools, and all of them are free. But on top of that, between the Amazon app and the Alexa app on phones, you technically can already have a fully working Alexa device sitting right in front of you on your phone. So it's in both the iOS and Android app stores. It works very well. You can just talk to it like you would talk to a device. It's not like the simulator that's a little bit different. Ryan and I actually ran into a very interesting bug/feature during a workshop last week based on the simulator. I can explain that to you guys if we have a little time at the end. But I would think you probably have a phone. I'm making an assumption there. So if you have a phone, the Alexa app or the Amazon app should have Alexa built in. But beyond that, it is always nice to test on a real device. Another place that I would recommend, I don't know what the library situation is in Brazil, but I have heard of libraries in other countries, including the United States, that make Alexa devices available to the public to convey.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so this happened when cell phones first came out too. Lots of libraries have a mandate that if there is an abundance of content in places, they have to go out of their way to try to make that content available to the public. And so when you've got 100-something thousand skills, that is content that people probably want to get access to, and being able to afford a device should not be a limiting factor in that. And so a lot of libraries have an entire technology library. You can go in and borrow like a Kindle if you want to read ebooks. I know there's already a great library-based ebook system. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called Overdrive. Overdrive is like the backing service behind most of the ebook library transactions. They're based here in Cleveland, actually, and they often integrate with a lot of the library's apps, so you can go in and check out ebooks and things like that. But I know a lot of them will also have a lending library for devices, so that you can get things like a Kindle Fire, or not a Kindle Fire, but like a regular reading Kindle or other e-readers to load those books on. So
that makes a lot of sense, because Echo devices are being used really well for visually impaired to be able to access like a lot of this audio content. So that's a really great thing. I didn't hear about that, but that's really great.
I don't know that it's consistent across the
right,
or
yeah,
across the world, but I know there are libraries certainly doing that.
I love that. I love that.
Okay, W. Giorgio says that they're going to be talking about a bunch of these topics. They didn't say specifically what the topics are, but that they've started a show called Between Two Beans.
Oh my goodness!
And
I know where that's going.
I don't know if that's coffee related,
but
they have a show tonight. So if you guys want to check out Between Two Beans, there's a Twitter link. I think you could probably find it on Twitter. Let's see what else we got here. Are there any good Amazon Pay tutorials that you would recommend? It looks like the official documentation is written for Node. I was hoping for Python. This is a consistent theme that I'm seeing in a lot of the.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know Brian Tarbox mentioned that we should have Python versions of all the docs. I think Node is a significant leader when it comes to the percentage of skills that are built in a specific technology. But that's kind of a virtuous circle, like virtuous cycle, because we provide all the documentation in Node. So of course there's going to be more skills built in Node if all the samples are that way and whatever. Great feedback. This is something else we can share with the team. Python is in high demand, and we should be considering more of it.
That was something that so when I came to Amazon 3 years ago, I was only Node.js, but I've been really pushing myself to force myself to learn Python. And so I'm getting much better with Python, but I'm forcing myself to write with it. And so when I joined this team, one of the things I really wanted to do is, again, work with Python, but then I ran into walls because we don't have as many Python examples as we do Node examples. So I feel your pain here. All the content, so here's my personal challenge. All the content that I'm writing, I'm trying to make sure is both in Node.js and Python for this very reason.
Mm-hmm. So Ryan is your champion. I have been a snobby Node developer, and I feel there should be one language to rule the world. And so
JavaScript is obviously the right one.
Obviously, it's the best choice. No, I have publicly said that, though. The reason that a lot of new technologies come out supporting JavaScript first is because everybody already knows JavaScript. Whether or not you don't necessarily have to have chosen to know JavaScript, it's just a thing that you have to know as a developer in pretty much everywhere. So that's I think that's why a lot of these kinds of experiences start with JavaScript, is because whether you like it or not, you've used it.
I'm just glad that I moved past PHP, which was my first professional language that I wrote in.
I skipped over PHP. My first thing was VB script. Classic ASP.
That's not much different than PHP.
No, it's not at all. And PHP still runs about 40% of the web. So
thanks to Meta.
Yeah, it's done pretty well for itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people have said that they really appreciate Tim Hewer's C# SDK. That's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that it's getting used. Brian says the actual SDK docs should include Python in all cases. Okay, John P.
disagree.
This looks like a question we've not seen before. This is from Twitch. Are there any plans for routine creation programmatically? The ability to create routines from code rather than only in the app. So you could have a conversation with a skill, which when using send to phone, send the user to a link with a routine, or sets the routine in the skill session. I don't know if there's any plans. And again, this is the catch of office hours. I can't describe to you what we're working on or what's coming in the near future unless I've been granted explicit permission, which is usually a public announcement somewhere else first. So that being said, I think that that's a fantastic idea. The idea that we should be sharing the ability for a skill to just generate a routine. But what I don't know is if we're actually working on that or not.
I was looking, so we do have a user voice channel. And I was looking to see there if we already had a submission to be able to do this. And I did a search for routine, and there's actually quite a lot of routine user voice submissions. Launch a routine from a skill, bunch of things like that. I would go there and submit one or +1 or vote on a user voice that's already there.
Yeah.
Can you throw up the? I can do it too, but you're usually in charge of the banners.
I
know. You're probably much better at this. Where is user voice?
Got it. You lost the race.
I don't even see it.
Well, one of the things that we should do is these can be reordered. All of these little banners that we throw up on the screen, we should alphabetize them.
Oh, I was in the wrong folder.
Well, that'll do it too. That will do it.
Man, it's embarrassing.
Is it in the Alexa and Friends folder?
It is in the Alexa Friends, not the Office.
I don't know why that was the default, but that's where they've all been created. Here, I'm going to tell you guys a story, though, about routine creation and why there's the potential for this to be bad. So probably a year ago, maybe even more, when we first started working on the idea of sound recognition with devices like breaking glass and dogs barking and a few other things, we had an internal beta where people that were Echo users could sign up and they would generate a bunch of routines for them so that when a dog barked, like they got a notification and they could see what had happened. And I thought, oh yeah, that's super cool. That sounds great. Now, they didn't really describe how these routines were going to be created, just that they would be creating some routines on my account and it would be great. Ryan, I don't know if you went through this or not, but
not that particular beta. No.
I regret it. So the reason that I regret it is because what they didn't tell me is that they were going to create a routine for each type of sound for each of the devices on my account.
That's useful.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, I guess, if I have 4 devices. But you've seen the setup I have just here alone. I probably have 20 devices in this room. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I have another dozen or so in my house. Plus there's ones that I've decommissioned or just have collecting dust or something like that. So we're talking 40-ish devices that have probably been added to my account. They created like 6 routines for each device. And so every time I go in to modify a routine, I have to like scroll through this whole list because they're not easily deleted either. You have to open each one, find the trash can icon, confirm. And so I'll delete like 10 at a time, and then I'll come back and be like, I don't want to do that again. So the reason I'm telling this story is because if every developer had the programmatic access to create a routine for their skill, they would, because routines are technically a shortcut to new naming conventions, right? So now not only do I have my skill called Cards of Wonder, but I could also say, create a routine that says, when I say that card game or the Wonder cards or whatever, like I could build a bunch of aliases for my skill. And so now I could imagine a developer like pushing 7 new routines in just to cover other naming conventions that they might want, or potentially hijack names that they want to be used. So let's say that there was some other really popular card trading game. Why don't you create a routine that says, when I say open the name of that other skill, open mine instead? Like you could do that with a routine if you could programmatically create them. So I think that there probably has to be some good safeguards in place. Maybe a skill can only create 1 routine. And then we would need to know that that routine was created by this skill so that if the user deletes it, then it could create it again. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. But I feel like there's the potential for bad there because as good and as honest and nice and customer obsessed as we all as developers like to be, we also want our skills to be popular and used. And when that opportunity presents itself, especially for free, things get exploited. And so just something else to keep in mind. Again, I know nothing about whether or not that will even be made as a capability, but it seems like I could see the reasoning for having it, but we would have to put some really good safeguards in place.
Yeah, I actually really like his suggestion, John B. Campbell, like doing like a send to phone. Like there could be a way where you like have to authorize it and approve it. Right. But yeah, it's a slippery slope, and I'm sure like if the development teams are looking at this, I'm sure they're looking at it as like, this is a lot of work to put the safeguards in place and everything else. So it's more than just like enabling an API.
Right. And then, if you do have like 100 new routines that have been created by skills, you're going to want those separated out into a new UI in the app. And so now there's like skill created routines versus the ones that I've created. Because as I mentioned, like scrolling through 200 routines that are alphabetized to find the couple that I actually care about was a nightmare around Christmas when I was trying to get all the lights set up and do all those other things because I just couldn't even find the ones that I wanted. And every time you go into a skill to delete it, when you come back out, it takes you back to the top of the list. So then you got to scroll through and find the one, it's a challenge. All right, moving on. Fabio on YouTube says, I know we don't have fallback intents, the words for fallback intent. I would like to know what the user says. So would I, man. So would I.
Yes.
For a number of security and privacy reasons, that's not provided. I would be incredibly surprised if that ever is provided. But you are correct. Today, that is not something that is possible. Brian Tarbock says he applies for widgets and got crickets. This is also something that I'm working on with our team. Whether or not you are selected, they need to be able to communicate with you and let you know what's going on. So I will mark that for a deep dive later.
Ooh. W. Giorgio says to tell one of our colleagues, Jeff, the other Jeff, to start making some Python docs. I will do that. I will call him out specifically. Thank you, W. Giorgio.
Let's. We have a team meeting. We have a team meeting this afternoon. We'll be like, Jeff, we're reassigning all of your work. You now write Python docs. We'll see how that goes. I just got to W. Giorgio's comment about there's only one process. So like you say, sell card ID, and it removes it from your deck and gives you the money. I'm assuming that's virtual money. And I'm trying to figure out how that relates to ISPs. Because from my understanding, and I'm pretty confident on this one, you can't give a user money. This is coming from the guy that wants to build a casino. You can't. There's no way that you would be allowed to give people money, certainly during an ISP transaction, like if you try to give somebody minus $10. So I don't know if what that comment is directly related to. But if you're trying to sell cards in a game and you just want to give people virtual money, which is obviously totally fine, I don't know if that comment is directly related to the ISP issues you were describing earlier. So I'll move on and maybe I'll find more from that. All right. Agency 2 said he was having an issue with seller name versus developer name when using Amazon Pay, and they recommended he recertify to try to get certified feedback from a dedicated team. He doesn't know what that means, but he's planning to resubmit. I think that's definitely a good idea, good guidance. All right. TradeLast says he did everything in Python before starting out with Alexa, but made the switch to Node starting out with ASK. Haven't looked back. So at least there's one person in my Node camp. I appreciate that. Thank you.
To be clear, I'm still much more proficient in Node than I am in Python, but I'm trying to be more well-rounded.
Right. Okay. Gavin has a good question. I think this is a good one to talk about. When a skill gets rejected for this reason, 2-word opening phrase is not allowed if one of the words is a definite article like the or an or something like that. Can anything be done if this word is part of the actual business name? Thanks. Yes, absolutely something can be done.
Yes.
There are exceptions to the naming rules when you own the name. And so let's say, for example, Mark Zuckerberg way back decided not to drop the from the Facebook.
I knew this was going to be your example, Jeff. For some reason, I just knew this was what you were going to bring up. So
I didn't have any plans for this. This is just what came to my mind first.
Came to my mind too, which is terrifying. So
right. So let's say they kept the word the on Facebook, and so it's the Facebook. In that case, you have some business records or a tax ID or something that shows that you, in fact, have registered that name and owned that name. In most cases, I would always recommend that you have the trademark or the copyright or something like that. That locks it up. You should be great then. But I would think that if you have at least tax records that show that that is the official name of the business, that should be enough for them to allow you to call the skill the Facebook or whatever it is. Now, that being said, if you have that documentation, you don't even need to live in the two word thing. If you have a skill that's just called Ryan, well, as long as you have the trademark for that name, then yeah, you can go ahead and call your skill Ryan, and that's fine. Assuming it doesn't break any other rules, which I don't think it does. So that is my guidance to you, Gavin. If you are talking about a business and the business does have an article or a preposition at the beginning, with the right documentation, which you should be able to provide as part of a contact us request, should not be an issue at all. Ryan Coffin's first language was VBA, by the way.
I was gonna say, my understanding is the only words that are like you absolutely can't use are like wake words and other, like you can't have, like you owned Alexa Designs bakery or something like that. You couldn't put Alexa into your skill name because it's very confusing.
There are a couple of others.
Yeah.
Profanity, regardless of whether you own the copyright on that. And then actual people's names. I got burned on this before you joined the team, I think. I don't know if we've talked about this, but I built a skill called Jeff Blankenberg. And it was like,
light, right?
Yeah, it was for the light. It was for a bunch of other stuff too, like what is my Twitch handle? What is my email address? Like all that stuff. So you could just say, like, ask Jeff Blankenberg for his email address, and it would tell you what my email address was. And it got knocked down, but as it was being taken down, I was actually in the process of recording all of the audio. So when you talk to the skill, it was actually my voice. It's going to be super cool, but they took it
Who
down.
would not want that in their house?
Right. Like that should be a default skill that comes like printed on the side of the box. Okay. Wasn't there a way to install a routine via a QR code or URL? Alan, I don't think so. I don't think that there is a way I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I don't believe that there is a way to dynamically generate a routine from anywhere else. I think the only thing that I can really think of is you can do what we call shortcuts. And so inside the app, you can have the app kick off a device for you. You can do that from a web page as well. And those shortcuts allow you to basically say, hey, start this skill experience on this device. It actually brings up a list of the devices that you own in your account. And then you can say, hey, yeah, start that skill. And so that's about the only thing I can think of that would really do what you're describing.
Okay, so I found a blog post that talks about you can share routines and create links and QR codes that way. Let me paste this in. Aboutamazon.com is the domain there, which it's interesting. But they have examples of links and QR codes. So
okay, I learned something new today.
That could be, yeah, look at that. The URLs go, that's interesting. So I'm hovering over one of the examples, like the family routine.
Can you share your screen?
I certainly can. Well, finally, I think I can. Let me do that. Share screen. Share screen. Share this screen. And you're probably gonna, whoa, here we go. Yeah, so this is the blog post. Customers in the US can now turn their Alexa routines into shareable URLs. So it's not aimed for developers, but for, like, if I developed this really awesome routine and wanted to get it to Jeff, I could do that. Let me minimize this because this is going to be just weird in the background. So here, if you hover over the URL, actually, let me copy the link address and hold on.
So many secrets.
I know. I didn't realize I was going to pull up all my notes. So this is the URL that it generated. So there is some sort of routines endpoint. Yeah. So it looks like you could. Now, whether you could actually put this into a skill, and redirect the user to this, or get it to them somehow, get it to their phone, so
the
they
other
could
question
click on
I would have is routines are very personalized. Right. I can go in and say, if I say this command, I want you to play
Yeah.
this music on this device, and I want you to turn this light red, and I want you to do this other third thing. And then I want you to
Yeah.
say, like, it's a party or whatever. So if I share that routine with someone else, do they have the ability now to turn on my light and play my speaker and do all that stuff? Or is it just blank holes that then they have to fill in with their device and their light? I have a lot of
I
questions.
want to try it. I'm
I
going
have
to
a lot of
share.
questions.
I'll share a routine with you, Jeff.
Okay.
And let's try this.
Just don't do something where I can like accidentally cook your chickens or something.
Oh no. They're nice and cool.
Good. How
I
are they
told you
doing?
it's
Still pumping out eggs?
no. I'm getting, so I have 7 chickens and I'm getting 1 egg a day. This is the ROI on chickens is not there. I'm going to tell you that.
I mean,
it has to do with like
egg
less
costs money.
daylight hours, and like they said I could set up lamps out there and like give them more daylight hours and trick them into blah blah blah. They're off the grid, so I don't know if I have enough. I have solar power out there, but I don't think I have enough for like lamps and all. Stupid chickens. I love my chickens. I'm just kidding. But I'm finding a routine. Here, turn off my Christmas tree, which is no longer up, but the plug is still there. Share routine.
While you're digging, I'm going to try and get a couple more questions here.
Who to share this link with will be able to see the details of your routine and use it in their own account. So we do not recommend sharing routines with private information.
Interesting. So Brian Tarbox says, is there any chance that ISP subscriptions will get more options than monthly or yearly? I'd like a subscription for a soccer season. So you kind of want a monthly, but only for like 8 months, 9 months, I think is what I'm hearing. Yeah, it feels like that would be pretty nice. I'll add that to my list of feedback.
I texted it to you.
Ooh, exciting. All right, I have it. I've received, oh, look at this. I get this nice little thing. It says you've received, well, let's get some lights off of that. Hide my face. You've received an Alexa routine. So nice. Okay, I'm going to view the routine. And
now you can control my Christmas tree?
No.
I would think it wouldn't do that, right? Like that's just a bad idea.
Nope. No, so it does what I described. You fill in the holes. So here.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It says that, but you can see the group at the bottom. It says select group. So all I've got is a routine that kicks off every day at 9 p.m. called turn off tree, but I have to pick the group that I want to have turned on. And then I pick from my groups. So it is that. So you're building the structure.
Yeah.
That was supposed
the rules.
For something like a skill, it probably could still point to the skill. At least I would think it would. But it can't. It knows it's going to point to a group. But I, as my individual user, I would have to figure out what group to use.
Yeah. So it's not complete. It's not foolproof. The user still has to do some work, but it might get you started.
Yeah. Edward Burns Sr. wants to know about Alexa.com, the analytical platform for ranking and data. I think
I thought they were.
Yeah, I'm trying to check. I'm trying to check that before I say anything.
The service notice right on the front page.
Yeah, so Wikipedia has it too. So on December 8th, we announced that it will exist until May 1st. On May 1st, Alexa.com will stop existing. But although I have escalated a number of things, I have no actual knowledge about how Alexa.com is going to get used. But the moment they announced that, I was sending a bunch of people messages. Okay.
It'd be cool to repurpose that.
For sure.
That's the general idea.
All right, I'm trying to scan forward, so I know we only have like 5 minutes left. I want to make sure I can. Can you build a skill for politicians marketing? Yes, I believe you can. I'm gonna confirm that. Ryan, while I'm digging into that.
Yeah.
Can you pick the next one?
Okay. I have no idea where you are in the comments, but I've scrolled down to the very bottom. Mike Elmore on Facebook is asking, is additional custom wake words ever going to be a thing? We don't know what's coming in the future, but historically they've been a thing. So we've recently gotten Ziggy as a wake word. And actually, I think, okay, my device is muted. That's actually what I use for one of my devices. So we have in the past introduced new wake words. So will we do it again in the future? I don't know. But maybe. I do know that custom wake words are really, really challenging to do because of the way that we do sound detection. So the actual like echo devices, I've just said in the past, they're kind of stupid. That's kind of not fair because the microphone system is actually really intricate, but they're only designed to listen to a few key words. So they're not always transmitting. So all the logic to detect the wake word is built onto the device. So when you were to choose a custom wake word, what we fear is tons and tons of false positives. Like if you said, hey, I want to name it Susan, but you words sound very similar. So like words like Ziggy are very distinct and much easier to detect. So that's the way we've approached the wake words so far. So custom wake words, I'm less optimistic about, but new ones, yeah. I would be surprised if we never introduced a new wake word just based on historical.
Right. Yeah, with Ziggy being our most recent one, I think we'll continue to train on new interesting words, but it will never be freeform. It'll never be you pick your wake word.
Yeah, that's just too hard.
It is. Okay, so I have a little bit of news for the person that was asking about politicians marketing. If you go to the Alexa certification guidelines, I'm on the policy testing. This is step 1 of the certification guidelines, which I will drop here in the chat. There are a couple of conditions related to the types of content that you can have. And politics in general is not barred. However, if your politics happens to be things that relate to Nazi symbols or hate speech or racial or gender hatred or any kind of other hate speech, which there are certainly political groups that support those things, that would not be permitted even in the slightest. So they even call out Nazi symbols. So even if you think you're being clever and you happen to show a swastika, that's probably not your best.
Please don't.
Not a good
Please
idea.
Don't.
Other stuff related to content is things about like pornography, sex, violence. You can have references to religion as well. That's fine. But you can't have things like forced marriages or purchasable husbands or wives or any of that other kind of stuff, which may or may not be found in other ethnic or religious or cultural groups, but they're very specific about what you can and can't do. So that's why I always really lean hard into the certification guidelines. It's all here, and I think it's really worthwhile for all of you to read this thoroughly because it gives you very specific guidance about what can and can't be done. But political content on its own, assuming that you don't break those other rules, is perfectly acceptable. All right.
Yeah, read the policies before you start developing.
Always
is a great tip.
The worst thing you could do is go build an entire skill and push the certification and then have them say no. That's a huge waste of your time.
Yeah. Mike Elmore also asked about medical related skills. He answered it by saying, well, he's reading through the policy now, but yes, there are like around health, there are a bunch of restrictions.
There's so much.
Policies.
Section 3 of the policy requirements
it's like the longest
is long, and it is all specific to health and medical stuff, right? Like you can never say anything that would be found in a medical record because someone else might hear it. You can't make recommendations for things like drug dosages, even if you have all of the information you need and you're making the appropriate recommendation. That is not something that we let happen anytime soon. So again, read those certification guidelines. They're incredibly valuable.
Hey, Witters would like us to go to the UK.
I would
I'd like
to
to go to the UK. Yeah.
I'm actually speaking at a conference in Scotland next week, but I will not be in Scotland.
Darn.
So yeah, I would love to come there. Hey, Witters, let's find us a way to do a thing. We just need like a cool conference that wants to have us, and I'll be there in a second, assuming we can get like over the COVID rules and whatever. Like I'm traveling. I just was at an event all last week. I hid in my hotel room most of the time, but I was there. Gave 3 different talks. It was good. I think that's it. SmartNet TV. I'll answer your question, and then we will wrap things up here. Is there a way to use MP3s that the Blueprint skills use during record custom audio on a flash briefing? The vibe I'm getting from your question is probably not. The Blueprints are kind of siloed in the way that they work, but there is, if you guys don't know about this, a huge Alexa sound effects library that you can use freely in any of your Alexa skills, including a flash briefing, I think so. So when you provide the content to your flash briefing, you could embed the sound effects that you can find in the Alexa sound effects library. I'm not going to provide a link, but honestly, just Google that and you'll find it instantly. Thousands and thousands of sound effects and sounds and songs and all sorts of cool stuff in there. So I would recommend trying to use those. Don't worry about the Blueprints ones. Those are found in that same library, but there are 100x more than what you'll find in Blueprints. Arkoff wants to know if I'm coming to Chicago anytime soon, or I guess you and I. I don't know if anything.
It's not just about you.
It's not always about me. I agree. I don't know of any reason we'd be in Chicago soon, but it's really just about the conferences that we have spoken at or engaged with in some way. Agency 2 is looking for pickup options for food orders. I know that we talked about the food ordering kit at Alexa Live, but I don't believe any of that stuff is available yet either.
I thought he was asking us to pick up food for him.
Oh, well, that would be fine. As it is now 1 o'clock and I'm starving. If someone wants to pick up food for me too, that'd be great. Okay, Dana Voice, did I miss your question?
If you're not on Slack, you can also get to us on Slack. We try to get to everybody in this hour, but we are not necessarily successful at getting every single answer question.
Yeah, but I also don't like to skip questions. So
yeah.
I didn't see a question. I think that's why I skipped it. You just said you were using scheduled triggers for routines on your Echo Show 15. Keep track of where you are using persistence. I don't think I saw another question. You can share a routine. I think we dove into that a bit. Dana Voice, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I apologize. I wanted to talk about ways of utilizing the Echo Show 15 while some obvious stuff isn't available. Okay, so I think you're talking about scheduling routines. I think that is probably another good way to get skills to be used automatically at a specific date or time. All right, I think we have to wrap it though. So my apologies, Dana. I thought that was just a comment. I didn't realize that you were adding to the larger conversation, and that's my bad. So Ryan, thanks for being here today, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's always fun. If we do make any major changes to the schedule, you guys will be the first to know. We'll make sure we let everyone know. But thank you guys for the hour today. Thank you for the questions. We'll continue to move things forward, and hopefully we'll have some awesome things for you here in the near future. So thanks everybody for tuning in. See you next week.
Bye, guys.